All right, the winner of the Did Lyle shave pool is yes, I did shave, even if you can't see it in this poor lighting. So I want to follow up on Thursday's piece, which was called Dumb Shit Fitness Professionals Say Number One, subtitled Be Helpful or Shut the Fuck Up, by redoing that fucking meme about the reason you can't lose weight is that you're eating like an asshole. Right? If I'm going to be critical, I should provide something better. So I put this together. All right, reasons you can't lose weight. Myths. Your insulin is too high. Noakes is part of this. Gary Taub started this crap, and despite decades of data showing that the insulin hypothesis of obesity is crap, they won't change their mind. Hall's work is meticulously done. It was funded by a low-carb group and showed that the insulin hypothesis is garbage, right? That's not what... Now, make no mistake, for people with severe insulin resistance, lowering insulin can be helpful, and limited data shows that that may have a difference, but by and large, that's not it. Following that, eating carbohydrates, right? Eating carbs does not magically stop weight loss under calorie-controlled conditions. Carb-based diets and lower carb-based diets, tend to perform pretty much equally. Number 3, eating sugar, same thing. There's this idea that sugar magically stops weight loss, and that's nonsense, right? Sugar actually releases less insulin than many of the clean foods, by the way. And about 15 years ago, I said, look, if you got enough protein, you could eat nothing but table sugar, and you would lose weight. And I'm not saying do it. I'm saying you could, right? People have done the Twinkie diet, the ice cream diet, and we know this. I'm not saying do it. And studies have shown if you replace some amount of carbohydrates with pure table sugar, weight loss is the same. For eating some specific food, there's lots of these. Gluten, whatever. I already mentioned carbs, dairy, whatever food someone has a personal beef with or has decided is bad, they will trot this one out. And usually for them, taking it out of their diet worked. Aha, it was stopping my weight loss. No, doing that made you eat less, right? Lots of magic diets work on this mode. They tell you this food causes obesity, not eating it will cause you to lose weight, and invariably when you take that food out, you eat less, right? Take all the carbs out of your diet, you will eat less for a little while. Eat paleo and take all the refined shit out of your diet, you will eat less. Take out gluten, your food choices are so limited, you will eat less. It's not the specific food per se. Number 5, not clean eating or doing a specific magic diet. Again, lots of these. Everyone has their pet thing. The clean eaters are nuts. Paleo, this new carnivore nonsense, intermittent fasting, cyclical diets, non-cyclical diets, you name it, and somebody has made it work, right? There's no single magic diet or we'd know what it was. Well, we do know what it is. It has to create a deficit and it has to be something you can stick to. And again, I said that 15 years ago. The best diet is the one you can stick to that has sufficient protein. And studies support that. It's all about the same. Number 6, starvation mode / metabolic damage. Starvation mode has been around forever. If you eat too little or skip a meal, you go into starvation mode and the body burns fat. It's bullshit. If that were true, people in countries with no food would not be emaciated, right? The body adapts, make no mistake. The body slows metabolic rate. There's all these adaptations that I've been writing about for, about 15 years at least. But these don't magically stop fat loss in their tracks unless you come into energy balance. The added on this one is metabolic damage. Hi, Lane. The anti-guru, because that's all he was about this, decided that because he had endless emails, which is not science, of people reporting that they were eating very little and gaining fat, there must be metabolic damage. And there was data, there's 50 years of data showing that this was not the case, right? Because again, where are the fat individuals in starving countries, right? And I'll tell you why they weren't losing weight in a second, but metabolic damage was horseshit. It got Lane a mansion, and he never did. He crapped out when he was called on it. Oh, I was misled. Own up, man up, Lane. This is pitiful. Anyway, you have a slow metabolism / low thyroid. Another one that's been floating out. They believe that for 50 years. And in general, it's not true, right? We actually know that as individuals get heavier, their resting metabolic rate goes up. Bigger body burns more calories. It's that simple. There's some variability at any given body weight. Some people have a relatively, but it's not a big difference. Where there is a difference is in total daily energy expenditure, because typically heavier individuals may not have high levels of activity, which can offset some of this. For two reasons. One, when you're heavier, it's harder to move around. But two, there is a biological propensity to move around. It's just as possible that people with a low biological propensity to move around gain weight, and it becomes a cycle. Same thing with low thyroid. They thought low thyroid was the issue, and they used to give thyroid drugs all the time, which has caused all kinds of fun tachycardia and muscle loss. By and large, not the case. Are there people who are hypothyroidal? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it still doesn't magically stop weight loss. It makes it harder. Overall metabolic rate is lower. Low thyroid causes water retention, which can mask weight loss. But most people don't have poor thyroid status. And if you do, you'll have endless other symptoms. Is it possible? Yes. Is it a common explanation? No. And finally, number 8. Reasons you can't lose weight are due to another of the endless myths that get repeated by an industry filled with utter bullshit that you have no way to sift through because some lazy fitness professional told you to do your own research rather than pointing you to better information, since they'd rather call you an asshole for not knowing what you can't possibly know. Right? I could spend hours just listing the myths that exist, that have been there for 50 years, that are not going away, that people cannot, how can they know that these are myths, that these are not the reason? Because they've been told that by people who are full of shit. If you're a fitness professional, it's your job to educate them, not be lazy and tell them to get online and do their own research, and not call them an asshole for not knowing what they don't know. Be helpful or shut the fuck up. Okay, so those are the myths. Now let's look at the realities of why most people aren't losing weight. Number 1, you are underestimating your food intake. This is probably the most common one. And this was the reason for Lane's supposed metabolic damage. And it's funny that he's now sharing these trite memes of, oh, the reason you're not losing is because you're underreporting your calories. Yeah, we told you that 5 years ago and you ignored it because you had money to make. You know this is true. You know I was right. But we know that most people underestimate their food intake by anywhere from 20 to 50%. Some people, there's some evidence, depending on the population, people misreport different nutrients, but it's large. And everyone does this. If you're lean, overweight, active, inactive, registered dietitians suck at this. Everybody is bad at it because we have lost touch with what calorie values and what portion sizes are in the modern world. They will go on the street and go, how many calories in a large pizza? People go, I don't know, 400? That's maybe a slice. A whole pizza is like 4,000. People don't know, and they're eating more than they think. And you find neurotic fitness athletes who think they're tracking, and when they actually add it all up, they're eating 50% or more of what they think. Everybody's bad at this. Similarly, you are overestimating your calorie expenditure through exercise. This is another common one, and people overestimate it by about the same 20 to 50%. And when you add those two up, right, here's what you think you're eating. Here's what you're actually eating. Here's what you think you're burning in exercise. Here's what you're really burning. Supposed deficit is no longer a deficit. The problem is people have been misled about how effective exercise is, right? Listen to these fucking Orange Theory. These things are like, you'll burn 900 calories an hour. Yeah, sorry. It's maybe half that if you're bigger and a third of that if you're smaller. If you're burning 300 to 450 calories during exercise, you're doing pretty well, right? If you're highly trained endurance athletes can burn 15 calories a minute, but they're working, right? Most people 5 to 10 calories a minute, and smaller people burn less. You're burning about half what you think of, and weight training just burns dick for calories. It's like 250 to 350 an hour if you're hustling. Number 3, your diet is so restrictive you end up breaking it and binging. This happens a lot. People try to target these super low calories, and then they're so hungry that they end up binging. What they do is you ask them how much they're eating, and they go 800 calories, because they don't want to report the 2,500 calorie day when they lost control. And yes, some pedantic asshole who, what about alternate day fasting? You know what I'm talking about. That's a specific approach, or intermittent calorie restriction. And again, people are told the less you eat, the better off, the more rapidly you lose weight. They're being misled. You find that when people take a more moderate approach, they frequently stick to their diet better, and they lose weight. So your rigid dieting attitudes are causing you more harm than good, right? This goes to the clean eating thing. Rigid dieting is when you have these black or white ideas. There are good foods and bad foods, and if you eat a bad food, you are morally unclean, and you might as well just eat as much as possible. This happens to clean eaters all the time, and we know from endless research that flexible eating attitudes are better than rigid. And I'm not right. Rigid dieters tend to binge more. They tend to have more mental stress. Those are the clean eaters who, I had a molecule of sugar, I'm going to eat 4 blizzards, right? And I'm not in my flexible eating strategies, like if it fits your macros and stuff. Flexible eating attitudes. You were offsetting a week's dieting on the weekend, right? This happens a lot too. This one I actually do see people commenting on, right? People will diet strictly, assuming that their food intake is right during the week. And then the weekends, you're not at work, your daily structure is different, you're at home. All of our social events revolve around food. It's very easy. Now, some asshole will go, what about cyclical ketogenic diets? You know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about neurotic athletes controlling their food. I'm talking about the average person. 6, short-term water retention. This does happen, usually due to stress cases, too much exercise. It was funny during the metabolic damage wars. Lane claimed Lyle's cortisol water retention is just a theory. Dude, they knew in the Minnesota study that there was a starvation water retention. There was 70 years of data showing that this happens. There's 50 years of data showing that metabolic damage is bullshit. But I guess science only matters when you don't have money to be made. Isn't that right, Lane? Adding to that, women have to deal with menstrual cycle variation, right? Body weight often goes up and down during the menstrual cycle. If they're tracking week to week, it's a non-starter. I discussed this in detail in the women's book, available for you at store.bodyrecomposition.com. Finally, other actual reasons that may be causing your lack of weight or fat loss that fitness professionals know is the case, but instead of pointing you to better information, they told you to do your own research when the internet is filled with nonsense that you have no ability to sift through. Then they called you an asshole for not knowing what they should have taught you. See a recurring theme? Again, I could spend hours. There are tons of reasons why people aren't losing, actual physiological research reasons. The ones I list tend to be the big ones, but there are others. But people are not aware of them because they're fed mostly the myths. And if as a fitness professional, the best you can do is tell them to do their own research because you're too goddamn lazy to point them to something better, you don't get to call them an asshole for not knowing what they don't know. Because that makes you the asshole. If you're a fitness professional, even if you're just in this industry and want to be helpful because you believe exercise is good for them, be helpful or shut the fuck up. Now, this is available on my website, this little graphic I've made. My logo is on it. I have copyrighted it. If you're going to share it, leave my name on it, because I'll know. Either be helpful or shut the fuck up.